Astrology. Welcome to Living Astrology with host Janet Hickok, intuitive astrologer and human design consultant, and her co-host Jason Levanis, intuitive tarot card reader and teacher, as well as feng shui consultant. At Living Astrology Radio, we are committed to empowering people to reach for the stars. Now enjoy the show. Well, hello, everybody. This is Janet Hickox coming to you from the coast of Washington State, where it's quite chilly today. We're expecting snow, so everybody's wussing out and not wanting to be on the roads, and that is so stupid because I'm sure the people in Montana and the East Coast and those other snowy places laugh at us. So I'm here today broadcasting to you about a revolution, and I've got my lovely co-host with me today, Jason Levanis. Hello, Jason.
Hello, my blue-eyed goddess. I'm laughing at your comments about people wussing out, you tough old bird, you.
Well,
last time I talked to you and I saw you, you were wearing your football jersey, so I know not to mess with you.
That's right. I have tough football blood running through my veins. No,
right.
I'm also a wuss because I don't like to drive in the snow. But, you know, there's a reason why. When I was about 4 years old, I lived down in Southern California, and my family always went to Big Bear during Christmas, I think it was, Thanksgiving or Christmas, but it seems like the time this happened to me, it was at Christmas. And Big Bear's up in the mountains, and it was very snowy, and our car slid on the road and went off the side of a cliff. And we were hanging front tires over the cliff. And I was,
oh my God,
I mean, freaking out. I'm 4 years old, and they made me stay in the car. They wouldn't let me move. And so I'm panic-stricken because I can see just enough over the dashboard to see that there's a long way down. Finally, a tow truck came and anchored us at the back, you know, with their hook so that we wouldn't go over the edge, and then I was allowed to get out of the car. But, you know, I have to say that that was probably one of those experiences that scarred me for life as far as snow is concerned. Or driving
you know
it
what,
in anyway.
Not to blow sunshine up your nose, but when you think about it, and you think about your life, and you get into those existential questions of like, you know, why am I here? What's my relationship to man? What's my relationship to God? And you ask yourself in your moments of doubt, in your dark moments, like, really, God? You know, what test do you put in? Do you really want me to be here? And then you hear stories like that, right? You hear stories like that, and you think to yourself, well, yeah, or he would have tipped your ass over the cliff. So you definitely, you know, were supposed to be here, are supposed to be here. And it's a pretty incredible story. Not to say that it's not nerve-wracking and that you still don't have post-traumatic, you know, stress disorder over it, because you never forget those fucking things. My God, while you were saying the story, I was sitting here in my mind just imagining it, like the little girl squeals and screams, and like your parents like climbing into the back seat so that you guys wouldn't be top-heavy in the front. Jeez Louise.
I know. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I mean, I can still recall the terror in my body. And, you know, at 4 years old, you know, what power did I have to overcome any of this, really? So, but it has definitely kept me from, number one, living in very snowy areas. And when we do get snow here in the Pacific Northwest, it's a big deal because really then everybody's idiotic and they don't know how to drive in it, and everybody's, you know, freaking out and driving too fast and or too slow, right? They get in there going 20 miles an hour.
Right. And it's the same thing here on the East Coast. We're having shit weather, to be honest with you. It's been nothing but gloomy and overcast. I'm dealing with a head cold. Everyone I know is a head cold. But I'm going to stop bitching and moaning, because the fact of the matter is you are here for an important reason. I am here for an important reason. Let me get some of the formalizing moments out of the way. Mistress Janet of the night, would you tell me, please, if your viewers and or listeners want to get in touch with you for free charts and or living astrology readings or human design readings, which, by the way, everyone, I do coachings every week with Janet, changed my life. Or can they get in touch with, you go ahead and laugh, but you know it's damn true. Where can people get in touch with you?
People can find me very easily. But usually I am reachable through my Facebook page, Living Astrology. That's probably the number one place I look. The second way that you can get a hold of me or get copies of free charts is to go to my website at www.living-astrology.com. And right now you can get a Jupiter and Libra chart free. You can get your natal chart for free. And of most importance is to get your free human design chart with a little mini reading that comes along with that for free.
That's fantastic.
No obligation, nothing. Yes.
You know what? I haven't gotten my Jupiter and Libra chart yet. I need to do that from you this coming week or so.
Yes, you should.
Jupiter is definitely on the main stage these days because looking at the topic of our show today, Jupiter is opposing Uranus, or as you like to call it, Uranus. So let me get my bullshit out of the way real quick. You can get yourself a reading from me by going to my website at Titillating Tarot with Jason Levanis, one word, Titillating Tarot with Jason Levanis at .com, and you can get in touch with me there, and we can do a reading together and have some fun. Also, my radio show is Last Night, and thank you for always producing and helping direct me in the background. You are the besticles in the westicles. So tell me a little bit about, and I have a terrible head cold, so everybody, if I sound snotty, I apologize. Tell me a little bit about this Jupiter opposing Uranus.
It's so funny because that planet has such a wonderful name. We play with it all the time. It could be Uranus, which sounds like you're peeing on people, or Uranus, which means we're talking about, the other end. So I usually just call it
lifestyle like mine. I have to tell you, that's just
no, don't go there.
Anyway, so go ahead.
So I prefer to call it Uranus, which leaves nobody to giggle in the background while I say it. So
it doesn't look like a light touch situation. I was looking at some of your highlight words. Change, metamorphosis, transformation, reorganization, restructuring. These don't look like small hitters. They look like heavy hitters.
Well, the energy is extraordinary in that this is the first time in a very long time that Jupiter would have been opposing Uranus from across Aries and Libra, in fact, about 84 years. And as it is, Jupiter and Uranus dance across from one another about every 12 years, but they're from different signs because Jupiter's the faster moving body. It's usually the one that is opposing Uranus. In this particular case, it is opposing at a time where the energy of Aries and Libra brings up revolution. It brings up the idea of big changes in our lives. So when I use revolution, I use that word deliberately because the energy of revolution is pretty powerful, and it's almost out of your own hands. It is just sort of something that happens. And as I look at the word revolution, I can't help but see the word evolution inside of that word. And we're also looking at an evolutionary impulse as we move through this particular time period. Now, Jason, are you doing something in the background?
No, ma'am.
There's a lot of noise in the background.
Weird. I'm just putting my cards down, but that shouldn't be making noise. Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like marbles going along the floor or something. Crazy.
Nope.
That's
okay.
Mercury retrograde coming up for us. Yes.
Don't start. Okay, so you said evolution in the word revolution.
Yes, correct. So when we're looking at this particular time period, and by the way, this happens very soon now. I mean, these two are already lined up pretty close to one another, or pretty much on the axis with one another, and it will occur in exactitude on December 26th and 27th, depending on what time zone you're in, and again on March 3rd of 2017, and then again in September of 2017. So we have more than one impulse of revolution coming up, or of the energy of evolution coming up. So we have this happening on both a personal stage and also a global stage, or a world stage, let's say. And, it's very clear, at least to most of us here in the United States, that there's something afoot, right? It began actually last summer with the energy of Brexit, the vote in England to whether or not to stay as part of the European Union or not. And you could already see there was sort of a revolt, a sort of energy of a revolution, as in the masses, the people rising up and claiming a difference in direction from the politicians. And, we should have known. We should have known, because what follows from Europe, what happens in Europe happens in the United States, usually, in the succeeding months. Or maybe not the exact same thing, but the same kind of energy, because as energies move, they move from east to west.
The repercussions, yes.
Repercussions, correct. And that energy built in this country, and again, much to our shock and dismay, some people's shock and dismay and other people's delight, the absolute absurd happened in this country as well, and began a revolution of sorts. Now, when I looked at the planetary energies a couple of weeks ago, I talked about cycles. So I want to clarify something about cycles really quickly. When I said cycles, I was hoping people understood that I'm speaking about those in a multi-dimensional way, not just a cycle where it goes round and round and it's the same old shit, a new year or a new century or a new, 500-year mark. It's not like that at all. If you want to think about these cycles of planets, for example, the dance of Jupiter and Uranus, I want you to think of it in terms of a spiral, where it's a cycle, as in it is going around an ecliptic plane, but it is cycling upward, and also comes back downward and goes back upward, because there's a dance. Like these two planets alone are going to have this dance 3 different times in this year. So we have this idea of planets that are cycling around, and then they retrograde. So they go backwards and they come back around some of the same spots they've been, and then they come back yet a third time, passing over the same spots they've already been, and then they move on to new territory. Almost like they're saying, pay attention, right? Pay attention to this particular time period. So as it relates to Jupiter and Uranus, pay attention to this time period. And I would say that this time period really began in October, just previous to the election here in the United States. And, England and the UK, they have their own, astrology chart. And so for them, it was an impulse that began much sooner. My guess is back in March. But this cycle for us was really implemented and really solidified as we got into October. And so we will be working with this energy all the way through Jupiter's transit in Libra, which doesn't end until next October. So at various times then, this is going to be a very powerful energy, and there isn't anybody on the planet that's going to be spared, if you will, from the energy or the impulse of revolution or change or metamorphosis. Right? That's a given. Now, to make this even more fun, because we're not having enough fun as it is, the planet of power and transformation itself, Pluto, is also intricately involved with each of these transits of Jupiter opposing Uranus. Within 30 days of each of those transits, Jupiter squares the planet Pluto. Now, a few weeks back, we were talking about squares, right? And the squares bring up crisis points. Right? They bring up trials and challenges, and we are challenged at the time a planet comes into a 90-degree or square relationship to either move our consciousness along or to take new action. It depends on, what part of the cycle you're in. So we are all going to be tasked as well with crises during this period of time. So, and I personally hate crisis, but I also see crisis as the food for us evolving, right? It puts the fire under us, if you will, to make changes, to make movements in our lives, or else we'd stay stuck. I mean, we're really kind of creatures of habit, and we like to stay where it's comfortable. So these transits come along and they make life a little bit uncomfortable, and then in some cases they make life very uncomfortable, and it forces you to do something. It forces you to evolve. So that is the energy that we're dealing with. Now, Jupiter itself is the harbinger of change in terms of growth and expansion. And then we have Uranus, which is change that releases us from repression or oppression. We call him sometimes the Great Awakener because things can happen out of the blue when you least expect it, and boom, your life has changed. So both of those planets have an energy about them that are going to push us out of our little comfort zones and out into the wilds, if you will, a bit. And, when you look around us, our world pretty much reflects that to us at the moment. There are some very powerful evolutionary energies that we're dealing with. And, when I look at this, Jason, I see it as a choice. We all have choice points, I think is what was his name? Greg Braden. In his books, he talks a lot about choice points. And choice points are what we are at right now. We have to choose. What do we do from here? Where do we go from here? Do we really take the slide backwards 50 years when women and Black people and people of color, maybe not just even that they're Black, or gay and lesbian people are being all walked on and tramped on? Is that something we really want to go backsliding toward? Or is there a choice point here where we can just say, screw all those people who don't like it. We're heading in this direction of equality and equanimity. And I can tell you that I know as an evolutionary impulse, humanity is moving towards unity and unity consciousness. So this momentary blip that we're experiencing, even though we're in the midst of it and it may last for 4 years, may last for longer, it has a purpose, and that is to have us evolving forward, moving our butts forward. How's that?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm hearing what you're saying, and while you were speaking, of course, I'm thinking to myself, well, there's Janet, God bless her, spinning some kind of, blowing sunshine up my ass again, trying to spin something positive. And I'm sitting here, I spread out my cards, and I said, okay, it's not like I don't see the cup half full. I would say that's generally your job. I tend to see things half empty. And so I thought, all right, let me pull a card about this energy. And I have to tell you, I pulled the Prince of Wands, and if you look on the Cosmic Tarot, Cosmic Tribe Tarot that I use, it is this prince, and he is beautiful and he's naked, but he has got flames coming out of his chest and his hands and his head and his thorax, and there are flames all around him, and he is balancing himself on a wand, and the gesture of his hands is one of I give up. This card usually denotes a very delicate balance, and that the persons or peoples in power are really going to have to focus that we are all, I hate to use the word in a precarious place, but we're all balancing on this wand, on this tightrope, and that things can go either way. And to be perfectly frank, it isn't a secure thing. So while you paint this picture of, yes, okay, I get it, you have to have tension in order to have release. I get it, cycles coming in and out. I understand all that. But this card says batten down the hatches because it's not usual that this time period is going to be one of pleasantries. That if we do get growth, it's going to be one of definitely being uncomfortable, definitely pushing your buttons, definitely having to keep a sense of balance within us if we want to be able to get through this period. So I just wanted to support you in what you said from a tarot aspect, and I have to tell you, I have a shitty feeling in the pit of my stomach. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think it's called fear. And, there's good reason. When you're dealing with the Libra-Aries axis, you're dealing with the axis of love and war. And you're dealing with very interesting energies because you've got Libra ruled by the planet Venus, and Aries
Uh-huh.
ruled by the planet Mars. And so you have this energy that pits the masculine versus the feminine, the aggressive
Uh-huh.
versus the passive. And so it is like walking on a knife's edge, or as your card there looks like you're walking on a tightrope, and it's precarious. It's not easy. I don't mean to be Pollyanna and say it's easy. I just say I know where we're headed. I have faith and I
Right.
have trust in a universe that is benevolent at its core, and that we're moving in a direction. There's an evolution, I think, that I could say that we are in the process of, and we can each see in our own personal astrology charts what part of that evolution we are in right now for us personally. So wherever you have Libra and Aries in your chart is the area where an evolution or a revolution is underway. So let's bring in our first caller so we can kind of demonstrate this.
Okay.
We'll make them a guinea pig. I don't know if you want to bring in
Wonderful.
Andy.
Yeah, I was going to bring in Andy for you, so hold on just
Okay.
a moment.
All right.
Hiya, Andy. It's great to hear your voice again. She is one of our best supporters. And Janet, I will leave you to Andy while I go into the background and screen some more callers, okay?
There you go. Hi, Andy. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, Janet. Thanks so much for taking my call tonight. Very interesting topic.
It is. It's fascinating. It's also scary and a little bit titillating, to use Jason's word. I love that word, titillating. And I think sometimes that little fear niggling in our bellies that we feel is really just a little bit of excitement, too, in that the potential for things to explode in a new direction is really high right now. So I don't know if you heard us, but you're going to be my guinea pig here. And I'm going to pick on you a bit around the energies of Uranus and Jupiter in your personal natal chart. So before we get too much further, tell me a little bit about what's going on in your life right now and why you might have wanted to have a reading today.
Well, I am in the midst of school. I've got about another year working on an advanced degree. And yes, Uranus has been kind of cruising through my 10th house.
Indeed.
For a while. And kind of through that time period, I've been through in graduate school. So I haven't really, I guess you could say graduate school has been my career lately for, about the past 5 years. 4 years, something like that. So in about a year, I'll be finishing up, and it is kind of exciting. It is kind of scary because I'll be doing something probably very different, than I've ever done before.
What are you getting your graduate degree in?
It's a PhD in nursing research. So
wow.
I don't know what direction this is going to go in, and I don't think it's going to be traditional. So probably not the traditional academic route.
Yeah.
With it. So yeah, it's exciting. It's research oriented, and I work with cancer survivors. So. Very interested in survivorship issues, and we're paying a lot more attention to survivors, and we've got a whole lot more cancer survivors, which is wonderful. And
I love it.
Excuse me, but we haven't done a very good job of assisting folks along the survivorship trajectory. So we need to pay more attention to that. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, this whole process is happening across the 10th and the 4th house in your chart. And the 4th house is about home and family. It's your roots. It's a foundation. So Jupiter is essentially growing the roots that you have here. And it may also expose inconsistencies in your roots or in your foundation, as in you may discover along this path that you can't do what you want to do where you are. And that means that you have to move on in some way. And it may be that you also have to take a look at how you interact with the locale that you're in. And perhaps, you have to make a move. Interestingly enough, Uranus at the other end, which is the part that's in your 10th house, is on top of your part of fortune and sitting right just a degree shy of your natal Mercury. So to me, this means good news, right? This is something that ultimately is a good thing. And that part of fortune really shows how and where you're going to find the most joy in this particular lifetime that you're in. And kind of where it's sort of the pleasure spot, if you will. And so your pleasure spot happens to be sitting here in your house of career, where Uranus is awakening something within you. It's awakening you to possibilities. And of course, Uranus hasn't been in this part of your chart at any other time in your life, except for these, last few years as it, made its move into Aries. So I think there's something very extraordinary going on for you. And the revolution here is definitely going to be in how you present yourself in the world as as an authority. And as we look at, remember I was talking about Pluto was also going to be playing in with these Uranus Jupiter oppositions as it is squaring, but it's going to be squaring your Jupiter Uranus from Capricorn and on top of your natal black moon Lilith, which is all about integrity. So I think there's a thread here that says that no matter what it is that happens when you're done with school, you have to follow your inner knowing. You have to, well, first of all, you have to be in your own integrity. So I say that I don't say that lightly. I say that very seriously in that you have a healing destiny, but it has to be in alignment with what's true and authentic for you. I hope that makes sense. Because if it's not authentic for you, it is going to blow up in your face. So it has to be correct, and it has to be definitely something that rings true for you. So if cancer survivorship is the part of your healing profession that really, calls to you, yet the only job that you seem to be getting offered is somewhere else in some other field, you're going to have to learn to take courage and take a stand so that you stay in your integrity. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
In other words, don't let go of yourself here. I think you've already come through probably what's been the biggest transformation, and that was the idea of going back to school to get a PhD, and that's a revolutionary impulse for someone who is, well, I won't say how old you are, but definitely not in your 20s and 30s anymore, right?
Right.
So you went back to school to do this at a point in your life where most people, are not doing things like that. So you already are breaking molds. Right? You're already moving into new territory. And I just want you to keep doing that. And I want you to stay true to you. I don't want you of what your dream is and in what way that you want to use this education when you're done. By the way, you said you have another year?
Yes, probably looking at finishing the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm. Which
and
means
it's interesting you mentioned. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, interesting you mentioned the fourth house because I've been getting strong feelings about getting a different house. Not necessarily. I work from my home pretty much now as it is, and I love it. Love working from home, but I have been doing a lot of caregiving. Excuse me, as my mom has been going through different illnesses, and she's doing great right now. But she's been asking me, well, down the road, could I live with you down the road? Is that something you would be open to? And I've been thinking about that and about the possibility of getting a home, that would facilitate or accommodate that. Down the road, which would need to be bigger, would need to be on one level, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
what's funny is that the fourth house is also the mother, the house of mother.
Yes.
So.
Yes. So I thought that was a hoot that you mentioned that. And a lot of that family stuff has been coming up. Just came back from a family funeral, and a lot of stuff about roots. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important. because it does play a role in who you are. Now, at the time next year when you are graduating, it looks like Jupiter will have made it into Scorpio by that point in time. And Scorpio, plays host to your natal Neptune. And so I want you to not worry if things don't look very clear for you at the time that you graduate. That will pass. And I think there's a need for you to stay, number one, in your integrity, and number two, use your intuition, because it's your best tool here. All right?
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much.
You are most welcome, Andy. Thank you for being a guinea pig. You did really well.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Take care now. All right. What are you laughing at, Jason?
You make me laugh, lady. I was looking and I was listening. I didn't get to hear a lot of that reading, and I was looking at some of the ideas about this. I was wondering if you, before we take the next caller, unless you want to go right to the next caller, who will be Lewis, I've given you his information. I was wondering if you wanted to tell us, go right into another reading, or, Lewis, I wanted to get a little more clarity about what are we evolving towards, I guess, on a macrocosm, How does that, how do each of us play into that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have one word for you, and it's really simple, and everybody on the line is probably just going to keel over, and it's unity. Oneness, right? I can pare it down.
So much of that is happening right now in the United States, huh?
I know. So much of that is happening in the world. I mean, when you look at it, it's interesting because I very recently came across a book called The 9 Waves of Creation, and it is a book that was just recently released. I think it was just out November 24th. And it is written by Carl Johann Kalaman, who did a lot of research on the Mayan calendar back in the day when we were worried that the world was going to end at the end of the calendar. And this is a fascinating study for me because I really recognized that there wasn't going to be an end of the world and that there had to have been a bigger picture. And he painted a picture of these 9 waves of creation. And the 9th wave itself launched on March 9th of 2011, 2 days before the huge Japanese earthquake off the coast of Fukushima. And interesting because it shows up in the news today, in that, fish in Vancouver, British Columbia are showing up with cesium-134 in their bodies. And Gold's Beach in Oregon, a water sample shows cesium-134 in the water. So it's in the news, it's in our face that there's something big that was happening. And in that particular wave, what we saw was the energy of unity being able to be downloaded by us as human beings. In other words, there's this hologrammatic sort of energy, and it is flowing through consciousness, flowing through the universe in waves. And at times, we as human beings, as humanity, we tap into the waves and then we bring it down here to the earth. Remember that saying, as above, so below.
So below, exactly.
So below, right? So during the 6th wave, which came up in 3115 BCE, before the Common Era, so a longer time ago, like 5,000 plus years ago, the wave that was launched at that particular time brought us the energy of duality and separation. And there was a reason for it, because without that energy, we would not have evolved civilizations. We would have not evolved into nations. The energy of laws and of the idea of having order and being able to see comparing and contrasting energies would not have been a part of who we are. Unfortunately, it was also the launching of the pattern of good and evil, right? Duality suggests, right? Black and white, dark and light, male and female, all that kind of stuff. Well, we've outgrown that freaking template, right? But it's so entrenched here. 5,000 years of duality, that this little tiny wave that got, I shouldn't say it's tiny, it's a very quick wave, a very high frequency wave that was launched in March of 2011, has barely had time to create unity consciousness here. And it's a point in our evolution that we now get to choose to download this, where before it was sort of not our conscious ability to download this energy. It just sort of showed up in the patterns of humanity. But now we can choose. So if we can choose, then why are we still living in this duality? Right? Because we haven't awakened to the fact that we're choosing in every moment by our thoughts, by our words, by our deeds, what it is this world is going to be shaping up to be. So, yea, though I have on air and in my mind, and two other people said, I cannot stand that man that was elected to the president of this United States, I have to heal that in me, because that is still a part of the unity, or part of the duality, of the template that was laid down 5,000 years ago. So I still have my own work I have to do. And that's the same with every person on this planet. We all have our own part that we have to play in bringing unity, and it has to begin with the choice to bring it into play.
Well, I have to tell you, Janet, I truly and honestly, it's not been it's been a long time since I've gotten jazzed about any type of metaphysics lately, and I'm sure other people like myself are neophytes. They really don't have a clue as to what you're talking about with respect to these waves. I mean, I have a lot of questions. Where do these waves emanate from? Is this the last wave? All kinds of things. So I'm thinking maybe in the next month or so we could do a show that is perhaps a little more focused, on this ninth wave idea that you're discussing, and the fact that it is more of a scenario by where we get to choose we get to put upon as opposed to be put upon.
And, correct.
Yeah. So with that being said, we have a lovely situation by where we have a male caller who's called in, which is kind of nice to change it up a bit. And so I would like, if you have Lewis's chart up, I was wondering whether you were ready to speak with our friend Lewis.
That's too funny, because I just had Lewis here. Where did I put it? I hid him. But before we go to Lewis, let me say one more thing about this. And I have actually reached out to the author of the book, The 9 Ways of Creation, whose name is Carl Johan Kalaman, and invited him to be a guest on the show. So if indeed that comes about, we will have an entire show devoted to just this subject. And we'll get it from
It's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, we'll get it from the expert's mouth, and it'll be awesome. So I have Lewis's chart up at the moment, and if you want to bring him in, I'll be happy to talk to him. Lewis, are you there?
Lewis, you're live on the air with Janet Hickox and myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful.
Hi, Lewis.
Enjoy your time with Janet.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Jason. So, Lewis, how are you?
I am very well, thank you.
What is going on in your life?
What's going on in my life?
Short version, okay? The short version.
The short version, yes. Well, I work too much. Then I don't have a lot of personal time. So, I'm trying to see if I can find an answer, if there's a good time to look for a relationship, or should I just keep working till I hit my 30s and then I can find somebody else?
Oh, my goodness gracious me, no. So let's take a look at your chart here. Have you ever had an astrology reading before? So I'm going to set the stage here a little bit. First of all, we've been talking about Jupiter and Uranus across the Libra-Aries axis. And guess what? You happen to be a Libra. So this is very geo-effective for you in that you are personally engaged in this revolution in a very powerful way. So the revolution for you here lands in the 9th house, which is the house of spirit, the house of your higher. And so the relationship that you are being begged to create and to strengthen isn't with another person. It is with your own higher self. And that means relying more on your intuition, relying more on your spirit, or becoming much more aware of who you are on the spirit level. And then, as that plays out, you're also being asked by Uranus at the third house level to be paying attention to what is going on in your mind, because the mind is often the killer here, especially, right now, as Mercury, the ruler of the mind, is heading backwards for us another time this year, and bringing our mind into a sort of focus on reimagining ourselves, on rebuilding ourselves, including our relationship that we have with ourselves. So is all of this making sense to you?
Kind of, yes.
Okay.
Because I always go back and forth. I'm always like, and then I think I overthink too much.
Indeed.
Sometimes.
Get out of your head.
I wish I could.
Yes, you can. It's a choice. It is a choice, Lewis. Now, it takes practice. I'm not going to tell you, like, Jason always says, blowing smoke up people's butts. I'm not going to do that and tell you, oh, it's so easy, because it isn't. But it starts with you paying attention to what is going on in your head. What are the thoughts, right? What are the things that are what are you telling yourself all the time? I'm actually going to buy some time here because I want to pull up your human design chart very quickly, because before I tell you what your decision-making tool is, I'd better make sure I know what that is. And so give me a moment here while I pull that up for you. And it requires all this information, and including...
Well, I can tell you that while you're doing that, I pulled 3 cards. And to be perfectly frank, the cards that I pulled for Janet are in total alignment for
nice.
What you just said. The 10 of Cups comes up showing prosperity, showing a personal involvement, showing how he becomes wealthy within his spiritual understanding. And then I picked 2 more cards while asking the question, what would happen if he did get involved in a hardcore relationship right now? And I'm not even going to tell you the cards that came up. All I can tell you is they both involve swords. Neither of them look particularly fortuitous, and so it would cost you, Lewis, right now, as far as the tarot is concerned, it would cost you more harm than good. It would be more of a headache. It would get in your way of development. It would cause you more worry. You'd end up getting together with somebody and you'd find yourself wanting to take care of them and nurture them, and it would take too much time that you do not have away from yourself. Does any of that make sense, what I've just said?
Right now, yes.
Yes, that's exactly what these cards are saying for you at the present moment. So if you would have, come to me for reading, basically I would have said exactly that, which is in alignment with what Janet is saying, in that right now it's all about you. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be enjoying yourself, because, to be honest with you, when I do the readings and I am involved with these sort of relationship things, swords a lot of times will signify the male sex. And so it means that there are probably a lot of men around you that are very interested in you, and or, should you be straight, a lot of women that are around you that are very interested in you. And so you should know that you're going to have a lot of interest. There's going to be a lot of people around you having interest, but that you probably want to keep things on a friend level with benefits, or, how do I say this, a lighter involvement. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I should. Okay, so
well,
wait till I hit 30, all right?
Well, I don't know if I'm saying that. I think Janet can give you a little more of a timeline, perhaps, of when it would be more auspicious. But she's going to tell you a little bit now about your human design, which will help you make decisions in a clearer way.
Yeah. I think the biggest issue for you at the moment, Lewis, isn't so much about relationship, about money, or about any of that. You're going through a period of time that sometimes we could call the dark night of the soul, where you have a lot of energy. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Trust me when I say, we've all been through this. Maybe not quite in the same way that you're going to go through this, because this is just barely beginning for you, where you are plumbing the depths as if you've come to this planet with a lot of old stuff, old beliefs, old patterns, and you are stuck in those patterns and also ready to explode them, ready to jump out of them. So I liken this to someone who's grown up or come to the planet who lives in quite the traditional family, perhaps, or is very engaged in some of the more traditional things like the church or very religious upbringing or a very strong culture that has conditioned you to believe that certain things are true about yourself. Here's the hallelujah in all of that. You're only 20, what, 6, 27?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you are our future, Lewis, right? You are our future, and you came to this planet at a time where that ninth wave of unity was going to happen at a time when you were very young. So you're sort of infused with this energy. So the only thing that's really going to stand in your way is your own thinking, your own patterns. So you're going to have to step out of some of those things that you grew up with. So I would guess, I see that you were born in Colombia, so you were probably born in what, perhaps a Catholic family or some other sort of, right?
Yes.
And I'm not blasting your family by any means, so please don't take me wrong. But, those kinds of families are very strong, and they have certain expectations that they project outward onto the children in the family. So perhaps a very strong father figure that expects certain things of you, a mother that perhaps rules the roost and also expects babies and grandchildren and you to get married and blah, 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 blah. And no matter what it is that the expectations are that have been telescoped out to you, they become conditioned in you. And then you begin to form belief systems around what is the expectation that has been, given to you through your genetics or through your family and religious and culture upbringing. So you're having to untie a few knots here first. And that's what I see is underway for you at this moment, is that untying of some of the beliefs that you may have brought with you from other lifetimes, as well as ones that you picked up in this lifetime. And as soon as you free yourself from those, and this may be a process, this may be an ongoing process, then you begin to see that your mind is the only thing that's holding you back, right? And your beliefs are the only thing that holds you back. So literally break free from your prison, because the only person that imprisoned you was you. And at this point in time, I would say that you have a very powerful inner knowing. I don't know if I said to you, Lewis, do you think you're psychic or do you think you're intuitive? What would you say?
I mean, not that I'm psychic or anything like that. Like, I wish, but like, I can see through people's BS kind of a thing. So when somebody's talking like crap, like I'm like, oh, so over it. Like, move, like, go away.
Yeah. So let me be the genie that delivers you your wish, in that, voila, you are psychic. Voila, you are intuitive. It is your superpower. It is your gift that you brought here with you into the planet, the ability to know intuitively what's correct and what isn't, what's bullshit and what isn't, what's right for you and what isn't. So that just takes a little bit of practice and getting out of your head, because the head wants you to answer questions like, how is that going to happen? Why does she say that? Is that true? Can you prove that I'm a psychic? Can you prove that I'm, blah, 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 right? I can already hear your head. I can already hear your head going through all of these things. So you have to stop the head and go with your gut. What does your instinct tell you is true? Right? What does your instinct tell you about where you're going? Would you believe me if I told you you were born to be a leader? Right? You came here with the gift of leadership. You came here with the gift of intuition, and the intuition that knows when it's time to lead and when it's time not to lead. And as you get older, in the next 10 years, that energy is going to be poured out toward imagination, toward being creative and energized in a way that's much more outside of the box than perhaps what you've created thus far in your life. So you have a lot of really good energies. All you have to do is get out of your head. Okay?
Yeah.
Get out of your head. Jason? Jason,
yes.
Are you there? You're going
yes.
and Lewis is a friend of yours, or you keep in contact with him in some way?
Yes, I absolutely do. We live in the same tri-state area, and
So you're
everything that
going to
you said
remind
about
him. You are
yes.
going to remind him every time you connect with him to get out of his head and get into his body, get into his instincts, get into his gut.
I think he knows that I already do that, to get out of his head and get into his body. So
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I was smiling the entire time you were reading him because it makes absolutely sense. He is, for a young man, I mean, I'm 48. He's a 26-year-old young man. I've had dinner with him, and he is able to philosophize. He is able to speak in a cogent fashion on many different levels where I have, some other 26-year-olds is, just dumber than duck shit. And he's extremely well-spoken, and he is very mature for his age, but definitely somebody who is in his head way too much. Let me ask you, when you pulled up his design, did it say that he had a defined head or defined, what was his...
No. He's got an open head, open ajna, open G center, open will center,
Wow.
open emotional center. Lots of openness, which is why I say a lot of conditioning.
Okay,
Lots
so,
of
sometime I will try and explain to you, Louis, what it is that she said. But also, you can get in touch with Janet, if you like, after the show at her website, and she can give you a little more of an understanding and perhaps get a reading at some point. I will definitely remind him of these things, and I hope that you understood, Louis, and if not, I'll speak to you after the show as to what it was that she was trying to say.
Not trying. I'm definitely saying get out of your head and get into your body, and know that the revolution that is right for you right now is a revolution of spirit. It is about encompassing that higher self and the realization that yes, you're a body. Yeah, it's not about the external.
It's not about the external. It's about your internal.
For you right now, that's exactly right. So there you have it.
Oh my God, wonderful. I love it. Oh my God, I love everything you guys say. I'm so happy right now.
Well, Louis, I'm going to put you back into the queue. I hope you listen to the rest of the show.
Thank you, Louis, for letting me chat with you.
I also have to tell you, Janet, it's so nice. I really would tell the listeners out there, especially if you're younger, I cannot champion you enough to call in and speak with Janet. I cannot. I mean, I wish I had a human design reading when I was like, I don't know, what the fuck, like 15 or so. So I cannot make stupid mistakes over and over again. So God bless you for, at the risk of sounding like a humanitarian, for really, being able to help the youth that call in. Janet, my
well,
love,
what's interesting there, Jason, is that I have a son that's his age. Louis is 2 months younger than my son Wesley, and so I'm very familiar with the 1990 age group and their struggles, because their charts all very much show the struggle with having to let go of some of the conditioning of the world as it was that they were born into, because their destiny lies in such a different direction. So it's very interesting.
8 minutes left. Do you want to take another caller? Or
I
would
do.
You like to discuss? Good.
Yeah, I see that we have a Christina.
For you, a lady by the name of Christina who's been waiting patiently.
Okay.
Do you have her details in front of you? Do you have her chart yet?
No, but I can certainly do that while we get to know one another.
Wonderful. Christina, you're live on the air with Janet. Go ahead.
Hi, Janet.
Hello. Hi, Christina. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You already kind of answered one of my questions while I was waiting. You said,
good.
I've noticed there's been a lot of weird synchronicities in my life. Like, I'll say something, and then, like, on TV, like, the same exact thing I said, it'll say it. Like, really weird stuff. I know. And I wanted to see if maybe you could see where that's coming from in my chart.
Let me take a look. So I pulled your chart up. Let's see. I have March 16th that you were born, 1984, just to make sure I've got the right chart. And copying information down quickly, and now I lost that screen. So as I take a look at your chart, what would you say is your biggest challenge right now that you're working with?
Well, I have a few.
Okay.
My son has ADHD, and right now we're trying to figure out exactly what's going on with him, if it's like a medical condition or just a behavioral thing.
Hey, wait, stop right there. Take this down. Take a note. I want you to send me his birth information. and I will do his human design chart and send you back some information, because often ADHD and ADD is a function of what's going on in their human design chart.
Yes,
now
yes.
We're very, very, very quick to put kids, and I'm not against medication, don't get me wrong, but the school systems, they're very quick to jump on that ADD and ADHD bandwagon, when in reality, your son may have a lot of open centers where he's absorbing the energy from the people around him, amplifying it and sending it back out. And so everybody else projects their own energies out onto him. So let's take a look at his chart.
He
okay?
is like that. He's very much like that.
I had a son in the school, same thing. Wesley, my 1990 kid, who is a projector. And so what he is in the classroom is the absorber of everybody else's energy. And then what does he do with it? He amplifies it. And then he has to do something with it. So it gets rebroadcast. So he's the one that gets in trouble because he can't sit still. He's the one that gets in trouble because he's, doing things he shouldn't be doing, talking when he shouldn't be talking. And they wanted me to label him ADHD, and instead I pulled him out of the damn schools. And I said, because it's not true. I did not know human design at the time, but I'm wise enough now to be able to help women, mothers and fathers with their kids. So let me at least look at his chart and see what I think first, and then give you a little bit of an idea of what to do. Okay, let's go to you. So you're challenged by what's going on with your son at the moment. And I can see that the children in your chart show up in the 5th house. You are a good mother. You are a very deeply caring, passionate parent and want what's best for your child. I know that. What's going through your 5th house right now is the planet. She's not really a planet, but a mathematically contrived spot called the Black Moon Lilith. And she triggers fear. She triggers the shadow aspect. And the shadow aspect here is the fear of death or the fear of loss. Causes you sometimes to become the savior, right? The Christ figure that is going to take over and swoop in and save the child or save your friend or save whomever's in your life. So I want to make sure you don't get into that kind of behavior, number one. Your natal Lilith is over in Pisces, which means that there's a surrender that needs to happen in your life. You have to give it over to God, if you will, or creator or higher power, and have faith in a universe that's benevolent. So that's number one. Now, your Jupiter-Uranus opposition, the revolution that's occurring, is in a very kind of skewed place for you because it's partly over the 10th house of career and the 4th house of home and family, like the first lady that we were talking to tonight. But it's also at some point going to tilt over into that house of children and the house of your bigger dreams or your bigger goals, dreams, aspirations. So you've got this. I love it. That's kind of that card that Jason was talking about earlier today, the walking a tightrope thing, because you're walking, a tightrope right now between what is and what could be. And I want you to really take stock of what it is that you're creating and what could be. Okay?
Okay.
Right. You have some very key places in your chart that bring up some really interesting energies. Crystallizing it in a way, and unfortunately those places that are crystallized in your chart are also being hit by transiting planets, so it does bring up stuff. It's not like they're in the more quiet parts of your chart, they're in the very busy parts of your chart. So I just want to make sure that you understand that and that you can meet these challenges, but I want you to meet them with a new way of thinking, a new way of being, with a more intuitive side to things, and a willingness to metamorphose, okay? A willingness to change, to be different, and to elevate your thinking and elevate your being. All right?
Okay.
All right. Don't forget, Living Astrology is www.living-astrology. Right there on the front page, it says request your free human design chart. I would do that for you and your son. And let's see if we can't spot some danger spots in his chart that we can maybe work with before he has to go into, more desperate measures.
Thank you so much, Janet. That's really incredible.
Yeah,
I hope I'm not. I don't mean to. I'm not stepping on your toes. I hope that you don't take it that way. But let's just look first, okay?
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Janet, you have about 30 seconds left. I'm going to put you back in the queue, Christina. So why don't you give us a nice sign off
Thank you,
and
Christina.
tell us that it's going
to be okay.
Good.
Every little thing. Every little thing is going to be all right. That's a song that was in, I can't even think of the kids' movie, but there were these two squids and they sang this song. Every little thing is going to be all right. We may come through some trying times. It's not going to be pretty all the time. I'm going to tell you, like the pirates say, keep to the code, right? Keep to yourself, keep to your truth, and try and think of things in a unifying way. Download that template of unity and unity consciousness. And in the meantime, everybody take care, and we'll see you next week. I have no clue what we'll talk about next week, but I'll tell you next week.
I love it. Thank you, Janet.
All right, everybody, have a stellar week.
Bye now.
Bye. Thank you for joining me today on Living Astrology. Living Astrology is part of the Empower You Media Network. You can find out more by going to www.living-astrology.com or by going to www.empoweryoumedia.com. If you would like to find out when our shows are airing, you can follow us at Blog Talk Radio under Living Astrology. Please consider liking us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Living Astrology and also Empower You Media. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye for now. Have a stellar week.